Hi Moo, hi Daddy. Today I thought I would do something a little different for our video. So I'm going to read you a blog post I wrote about our cruise that we took over Halloween back in 2007. And I wrote this after I got home and I thought you would enjoy it. So here goes. It's called My First Cruise. We left a week ago, October 28th, for 6 nights of fun on board the Norwegian Spirit, departing from New York with stops in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Bar Harbor, Maine, Boston, and Martha's Vineyard. I'd never taken a cruise before, had never really considered taking one, but my parents, former cruisers, were treating the whole family, and how could we say no to that? I was psyched to visit Nova Scotia, a place I'd always wanted to see, in addition to Acadia National Park, and so we went, no need to ask twice. My maiden voyage was an experience, and I've certainly come away from it a more enlightened person. The most amazing thing to me was actually living on the sea for a week on a massive ship, and to think about what it's like for the employees who live and work there. For those who've never taken a cruise, it's sort of like being stranded at a resort. There's more than enough food, plenty of booze and entertainment, but you really can't leave. If you get bored, if you want to stay longer in port, if you want the effing motion to stop already, it ain't happening. If you cruise in a warm climate, you'll probably be so busy sunning, swimming, and drinking that you couldn't care less. But the cruise we took had by necessity more of an indoor theme. It was cold and windy. The water was rough, and we spent a lot of time wandering around the ship, gambling in the casino, and of course, eating. Having Meniere's disease, I undertook the voyage with slight trepidation, thinking overly rich, salted cuisine was going to throw me for a loop. But the food was deliciously seasoned, and everything was fine. The ship itself was beautiful and unbelievably enormous, like a floating hotel, but more. And the decor was lovely, other than our circus tent bedspread. Do you remember those striped bedspreads? I do. It's hard to forget them. And subdued with a lot of Asian detail. It's because the ship was actually a former Asian cruise ship. The train staff continually amazed me, performing all of the requisite functions without regard to the movement of the ship. It must come with practice, but was impressive nonetheless. The kids' crew children's program rocked, and the girls couldn't wait to go back every night. On Halloween, they took the kids all around the ship for trick-or-treating, and many of them said it was their best Halloween ever. Not surprising, they made out like bandits. Our first night on the ship, though, I wasn't seasick. I'd taken a ginger pill or two earlier and felt peachy in that regard, but I'd been fighting a cold before we got on board and wasn't feeling 100%. The water that night was rough, and the wind raged and howled against our balcony most of the night. Between the rocking of the boat and the screaming wind and the very newness of it to me, by bedtime I was a nervous wreck, convinced I'd be awakened in the middle of the night having to jump ship. By 6:30 a.m., while most others were sleeping off their hangovers, not me, I was out of bed practically dancing. I was so happy to still be alive. I threw on my jacket, headed to the top deck, and walked laps for an hour. The sky was gorgeous, and the sea sparkled and stretched for miles in every direction. The dolphins I saw swimming off the bow were just icing on the cake. The remainder of the trip, save for the last night, was great. We visited the Citadel, an art museum in Halifax, bought some Nova Scotian whiskey for my husband, stood on the top of Cadillac Mountain in Bar Harbor, took in the spectacular foliage, walked all over Boston, as well as treating the kids to the Children's Museum, and rode bikes around half of Martha's Vineyard. We had a blast in the casino. I won over $350 on the slots and enjoyed nightly shows, especially the Second City Comedy Troupe and Richie Byrne. It was fun. But the last night, When we left Martha's Vineyard on Friday evening, Hurricane Noelle was coming up the coast and fast. The small transport temper boat that we rowed back to the ship was being slapped around like a naughty child, and people were frightened, including me. The captain of the Spirit wisely decided our best chance was to try outrunning the storm. And so which we did manage, blazing from Martha's Vineyard to New York, full steam ahead. The gale force winds shook us like popcorn, heaving the island-sized boat around like a toy. People kept making jokes about us eating our last supper on board. Ha ha ha, not funny. Not funny, I was terrified. After spending a week at sea sanitizing my hands 30 times daily, and boy does that seem like relevant in this pandemic age, it seemed unwise to actually press lips to the dirt, but when we arrived in New York City Saturday morning, I wanted to kiss the ground. It's great to be home, though I'm still swinging back and forth with the movement of the ship. At this moment, the room is tilted at a slight angle, and I feel as though I may teeter off my seat. Last night, while uploading photos from the trip, I felt positively nauseous. It must be an effect of Meniere's, as the rest of my family are fine, but oh, how I wish I could make it stop. How ironic for me to be seasick now, back in Philly, when I felt great all week on board the boat. Cursed sea legs. Sea ear. So here we have some pictures. In Bar Harbor, the biggest lobster claw I'd seen in my life. You could live off that guy for a week. There's John holding ginormous. It's like as big as your head. My older daughter is obviously thrilled to be participating in the emergency drill. Go Team Z1. That's Maddie. A photo of the pool on one of the calmer days. It looks like the water is trying to liberate itself. John and the ladies went hot tubbing while I snapped photos, snuggled warmly in my parka. It was about 50 degrees outside and windy. Then, of course, John had to go swimming in the big pool, which even at 80 felt cold. We were all surprised to learn the pool's filled with salt water. It makes sense, but we weren't expecting it. I don't know if you can see it real well, but the water is just, instead of being flat, it's like flying out of the pool. It was so windy. Then the pilot boat had to escort our ship each time we entered or left a port. Here's a pic from Bar Harbor of the escort returning to his boat. It was always neat to watch. And the first time we saw it, we didn't know what was going on. I was like, hey, did someone miss the boat? Are those pirates? Duh. Good thing my parents were there to explain all those little things. There's the pilot ship down below. Oh, here's this one. It said, the hard-working Canadian Border Patrol. This one's strictly for my sister, who marveled several times at the quality of the men in Halifax. She is from Philly, after all. There's the handsome Border Patrol men. And one of them's like giving the eye to the camera. Oh, that was a trip down memory lane. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you both so much. Have a great day.